Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This is Kailey and Peggy from Henry Ford Sandcastles bringing you another episode of Grief and Brief. And today we're going to be talking a bit about self care. So, to start, let's think about a few things. How do we take care of ourselves? How do we get through this holiday season or any tough season and get through to the other side? It's especially important this time of year to check in with ourselves. How are we doing? Really? How are we really doing? There can be so many pressures, sometimes even just the pressure to make this a magical time of year for our children or ourselves, that can make this time of year increasingly difficult. Not only are we surrounded by grief, but add in the gloomy weather, the lack of sunlight, all those other things. And this time of year can feel dark.
Absolutely. So today we are talking about self-care because you need to hear this. Self-care is a term that sounds so fluffy sometimes, but you need to take the time and the money and the resources to be able to participate in some of this mainstream self-care, right? So maybe a bubble bath or retail therapy or facials or something like that. Sometimes that self-indulgence is needed and can totally bring some care to the soul in the moment. But I think the cultural emphasis on these indulgent behaviors as self-care really limits the true meaning of self-care and what it means to really care for our mind, body, and our soul. So if we do these things, we should focus on doing them mindfully. Self-care needs to be a conscious practice. It's an investment in ourselves because it's so important to have meaningful and impactful tools that combat anxiety and life's really difficult challenges.
So start with a check in. Ask yourself, how am I doing? And take the time to really think about that and look into yourself and be vulnerable with your soul. Maybe you're not doing very well. That's okay. It's important to pay attention to that because recognizing in ourselves that we're angry or overwhelmed or anxious or sad, that body awareness is important in our healing. And as we know at Sandcastles, our emotions are never right or wrong. How we feel is how we feel. It's what we decide to do with those feelings that matters. And once you've determined where you are, you're halfway there. So celebrate it. You found in yourself your starting point, and you can determine where to go from there.
And remember that healing and grief takes a lot of effort and care for ourselves. Let's talk about what we can do. So sometimes that's a fight because it takes time and energy, which is something we may not have. But the gift of self-care is that in the long run, you will gain energy. So let's talk about some of the positive things we can do for ourselves, starting with being careful of the amount of pressure that you put on yourself to do all the things right for the holidays. You actually don't really need grand gestures or to spend a lot of money. Sometimes quality time with loved ones is the very best. Do something like going to look at holiday lights or watching a movie and drinking hot chocolate or making a paper chain together or finding time to go ice skating for or a walk in the snow. And be sure to schedule a time in to do it too. If your schedule is really busy, put it on your calendar. Make that time to intentionally connect with others. It's a priority.
Absolutely. Some other great ideas are spending time alone, going to a place to reminisce on good times in the past, indulging in a food or a dessert that reminds you of your special person who died, maybe even lighting a candle at the beginning of the day or listening to music quietly. Or one of my personal favorites, which is using an app like the Calm app to center yourself.
I love that. One more thing to think about. This is a hard one, but what are we teaching our children if we aren't taking care of ourselves? Our children learn by watching us. So when they see us neglecting our own needs for rest, for healing, for rejuvenation, they're learning by example that taking the time out for themselves isn't important. So investing in yourself is also investing in your children. Give yourself grace. Not every day is going to be perfect. So take each moment as they come and make the next best choice at each point. We don't need to have the whole plan or have all the right answers. Just make the next best choice.
And with all of the knowledge and the research that now exists in this world of mindfulness and self care, spending time and energy on ourselves is shown to give us the tools we need to have strength through the journey. So focus on what is helpful for you. And in the words of Audre Lorde, self care is not self indulgence, it is self preservation.